Welcome to Satsang Conversations, where we journey across the world to the serene and sacred spaces of BAPS Mandirs. This podcast is your gateway to exploring profound spiritual lessons that echo through time, yet remain incredibly relevant to our everyday lives. Each episode brings heartfelt discussions, wisdom, and insights that help us navigate the challenges of modern life with a deeper sense of peace, purpose, and connection. So whether you're seeking inspiration, solace, or a spark to light up your spiritual path, join us as we dive into conversations that uplift the soul and enrich the heart. This week, we travel to Neasden, UK, to the BAPS Mandir in London, where we'll be joining a conversation with Pujya Gunatitanand Swami and Pujya Param Setu Swami on an inspiring kirtan by Sadguru Brahmanand Swami.
So this bhajan by Brahmanand Swami, it's in a genre of kirtans called Sindura. Sindura are known as war songs. So from the old days when people would go into battle from the villages and towns in India, Rajwada Maje, the battles that would happen between kingdoms. So the village people, the town people, the people of the kingdom, they would encourage and, they would inspire the soldiers and the warriors into battle by singing these type of songs, Sindura. So in the same way, the Paramahansas of Shiji Maharaj, they wrote these type of Sindura, these bhajans to inspire courage in the greatest battle, the battle of, the battle of Adhyatmikta, the spiritual battle. So that's what the Sindura are, and Harijan Sacha Re is a perfect example. And there's four bhajans, 4 pads in this chosar. Harijan Sacha Re is the first, then Tekna Mele Re, pachi Hoy Himmat Re, and finally Pet Katari Re. So 4 very, very strong kirtans that talk about the qualities of a very courageous Shurvir Hari Bhakta, a devotee of God. So very inspiring kirtans that Santos and Hari Bhaktas around the world, they learn by heart. I know many Santos that sing this every single day, and some Hari Bhaktas sing it every single day to just start their day off with courage and energy.
Swami, you mentioned, so this is based on something which people used to sing to war, right? So obviously in war we know about the soldiers and that sort of thing. But who wrote this? You said Brahmanand Swami. So why did he write such a strong-worded kirtan? Can you tell us a bit more about Brahmanand Swami?
So I think obviously we know in Maharaj's time, Bhagwan Swaminarayan's time, to be a Swaminarayan Satsangi, to do Bhagwan Swaminarayan bhajan, obviously it was something that was very, very difficult, challenging time, and a lot of opposition. And obviously at that time, there was no single rule of law. It was all sort of small kingdoms. And if the king just didn't like Bhagwan Swaminarayan for whatever reason, then he would punish. He would ostracize satsangis. They would imprison them. They would starve them. They would make them stand out in the village square under the summer sun. No food, no water. They stand there, they suffer. And there was one such Hari Bhakta. His name was Rupabai. And he was from the kingdom of Bhavnagar. And the king of Bhavnagar at the time, Abhaysingh Darbar, hugely opposed to Bhagwan Swaminarayan. And he punished Swaminarayan Satsangis. And a lot of the Satsangis became very, morale was low. Obviously, they were suffering physically, mentally. And when Bhagwan Swaminarayan found out about this, he instructed Sadguru Brahmanand Swami to create this chosa. So the collection of 4 kirtans. And then he instructed the Hari Bhaktas to sing the kirtans, to think about the words, just so that they stay with courage. They stay strong under these difficult circumstances, that they never gave up their faith, they never gave up their religion, to make them believe all the time Maharaj is with them, Bhagwan Swaminarayan is with them, and ultimately the truth will always prevail. So this was a kirtan that was composed for Rupabai and the Hari Bhaktas in the kingdom of Bhavnagar. So they Himmat Re in their heart. They stay courageous and they stay loyal to Bhagwan Swaminarayan.
Yeah, I think the Paramahansas, they wrote lots of bhajans like these. And if you look back, then those words, the kirtans that were written by these Paramahansas, look at their words in this. Harijan Sacha Re, Hoy Himmat Re. A devotee, a true devotee of God is one who has courage from inside, inner courage. So all of these words were inspired by Maharaj's talks. Now, if you were just to study the Vachanamrut a little in Gadada section 2, number 22, Maharaj talks about two armies. But if you were to really look at the beginning of that Vachanamrut, then the Paramahansas first described the scenario, what happened. So Maharaj wakes up in the middle of the night on that day. And he wakes up in the middle of the night and he says, okay, call all of the Hari Bhaktas and the Santos together. So imagine he didn't just wake up, he woke everyone else up and he gathered them in a sabha. And at that time, Maharaj, he stays quiet for a while. And then what message does he want to give them? He talks about this exact subject, courage. So in the dead of night, he tells people like Nishkuranand Swami, Brahmanand Swami himself, Muktanand Swami, he talks to them about two armies and a battle that goes on in the battlefield. And in that battle, there's so much blood, there's people dying. And he talks of two types of soldiers, a brave soldier and a weak soldier, a coward. Now, the brave soldier will always have his eye on the goal, on capturing the flag of the opposite army and putting his flag in place. Now, he doesn't see the obstacles in between, but he thinks, okay, I want to get there. I want to win this battle. And Maharaj says there are weak devotees, there are weak soldiers that fall back in battle. And then, remember, in the middle of the night, Maharaj then says, okay, this is just an example. But in the spiritual world, a true devotee who's courageous is one who has his eye on the goal. Okay, I want to go to Akshardham. I want to succeed on the spiritual path. I want to succeed in life. So that such devotee always remains positive, Maharaj says in that Vachanamrut. He has faith and he never speaks discouragingly. Now, when these Paramahansas heard these words, you can imagine. Now, Shiji Maharaj Bhagwan himself is saying these things. They must have stood up, walked away from there, and then with these thoughts in mind, and in other such sabhas, with the thoughts that Maharaj gave them, the conviction that Maharaj gave them, the faith, they must have written these bhajans, Harijan Sacha Re. Pachi Muktanand Swami wrote a bhajan, Dhira Durandara, Shura Sacha Kara, about a true warrior as well in a battle. And Nishkuranand Swami wrote a whole scripture called the Manganjan, the battle in the mind. In a lot of detail, he describes the battle that goes on in our minds. So these things are there to inspire all of us, and messages directly from Bhagwan through the Paramahansas to us.
About that Vachanamrut, one thing that's really nice now is that the Paramahansas at the time, they wrote down this detail. Okay, Maharaj woke up, Bhagwan Swami woke up at the middle of the night. He woke everybody up at the middle of the night. It goes to show, it tells us 250 years on, how important this talk must have been in Maharaj's mind. Okay, he didn't feel, do you know what, I'll wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning when everybody else wakes up and we'll sit down and we'll talk. Like he thought, no, I need to say this right now. That's how important it must have been. And I think one interesting thing about Harijan Sacha Re, and you mentioned Sadguru Muktanand Swami's Kirtan. Okay, if we discussed, okay, Chandlo, what defines a devotee of God? We would say maybe goes to mandir regularly, sits in sabha. But the definition that Sadguru Brahmanand Swami has given, the Sadguru and Sadguru Muktanand Swami given in their Kirtans, the very definition of a devotee of God or a Bhakta or Bhagwan at his very fundamental level is courage. He said, Harijan Sacha Re, Hoy Himmat Re. A devotee of God is one who keeps courage in his heart. Dhira Durandara Muktanand Swami, amazing kirtan. He says, Dhira Durandara Shura Sacha Kara. He says, Marano Bhayate Manama Na Ane. And then he says, Ke Arvani Karva, Dara Eka Sama Fere, Drorane Tulyate Hane Jajane. So if you imagine a battlefield, okay, on one side is Purvaraj, and on the other side, Muktanand Swami says, Arvani Karva, so billions of soldiers. Now that's not a fight. But the Bhakta Bhagwan, even though there's billions of people in front of him, he considers those billions of soldiers to just be like a blade of grass. He's one. He's got no fear whatsoever. The very definition of a Bhakta is different from what we might give it. Sadguru Gunatitanand Swami, Sadguru Brahmanand Swami, Sadguru Nishkunanand Swami. The definition of a bhakta is that he always remains resolute in his heart, firm in courage, never fear anything.
But Swami, I get all this courage stuff. Like, back in the day when people are fighting wars, seeing that sense of courage. During Maharaj's time, the Brahmanas, there are a lot of violence against them. So you need courage. But looking around, now it seems like, is there really a need for courage? Because, we go to university, no one really stops us from doing our niyams. No one really cares about you that much. Like, you come to Monday, do your thing, you leave. So is that sense of courage still something that's required today?
So Puri, Ved, I would ask you. So when we were studying Mahabharat in Sharad, so we were extremely fortunate. We had Pujya Gunatitanand Swami, who was teaching us Mahabharat. And when we started off our class, he raised a question that most of you will be familiar with the Mahabharat, as I'm sure all of us are, the greatest story ever told. And he said, what caused the Mahabharat? Maybe you have to pin it down to one single prasang or an incident. So a lot of the santos at the time who are quite familiar with the Mahabharat, they said, somebody said, for example, the game of dice, that was irreparable after. At that point, there was no going back. Some people said it's when Draupadi said what she did to Duryodhana. In Duryodhana's mind at that point, the insult was so deep that the battle lines were drawn. That's it. It's life or death. It's a war. Some people went a bit deeper, like when they were growing up. There's a story where Dhritarashtra took Duryodhana aside. This is when Duryodhana's a little kid. And he told him, in the future, this is a life message. This is Bal Sanskars in the Mahabharat. He said, Duryodhana, I'm going to tell you something. He goes, for the rest of your life, you keep this message with you. Your enemies, you keep your friends close, but your enemies, you keep them on your shoulder. And you say nice words to them, you befriend them, you try and be generous, you win their favor. And then there'll be that one time in your life when you have an opportunity to end that person. At that point, do not think twice. You get him off your shoulder. In your life, when you get that big boulder, you take your enemy off your shoulder and you smash his head on that boulder. And some people say that if the father has given Dhritarashtra has given Duryodhana these sorts of bal sanskars, it was always going to end up in life and death war. So all the santos were saying their opinions, and Pujya Gunatitanand was just listening very patient. And then he said, Mahabharat, in one line, in its most basic form, take away the fact that it's about Bhagavan Ashra, the main character is Bhagavan himself. Take away all of that. It's just a bhashya on Manushya Swabhav. It's the most extensive commentary on human instincts. And then he elaborated, he said that, Duryodhana, it's not necessarily Duryodhana that caused the Mahabharata, it's his greed, it's his ego. You look at Yudhishthir, not Yudhishthir, but it's his vyasana, his addiction to gamble. He couldn't say no. He lost everything once, then the Kauravas gave everything back to him. And then challenged him to another game, and he couldn't say no. You look at Karna, Kotopaksh, he took the side of adharma. You look at Arjun. Everybody has played their part. Everybody's had those swabhavs. And that's, to answer your question, today you don't walk out on the street. There's no Abhaysingh Darbar that's going to put you in prison for no reason, just because you have a Tilak channel on your head. But the war ensues in our heart. It has for time immemorial, and it will continue until we've got rid of them. These Manushya swabhavs, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, all of this sort of stuff. And when you look at the kirtans, Sadguru Brahmanand Swami, Sadguru Muktanand Swami, Dhira Durandara, he says, he defines who the army is. He says, Kama, Ne, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, Dharma, Mukhi. So in front aren't necessarily human enemies, but the enemies of our instincts, inner instincts. They are the more reason of why we feel happiness and misery, all of these Manushya swabhavs. That's who we're fighting against.
Yeah, I think that's when you go quite deep. But I think recognizing your enemies is a very important thing to do. Like we talked about, you said in the times of Brahmanas it was difficult, but I wouldn't say it's that much easier now. It depends on each person. Everyone has their own battle. So what is your enemy? What is your battle? Everyone has a different battle. Even Maharaj says in the Vachanamrut, in Pratham 70, there are those that have more difficult battles than others, but everyone has a battle. So recognizing what is the thing that is pushing me back, or what is the niyam, or the thing that I can't follow as well, and then fighting that. In Pratham 70, we just mentioned, Maharaj mentioned stories from the Mahabharat as well. But in Gadara section 1, number 70, he talks, Kakabai asks a question. And in that he says, okay, Maharaj, sometimes there's something in the mind that says yes, and there's something that says no. Yes, meaning, yeah, go on, indulge in that thing. Go and drink something, or go out with your friends and, go to places we shouldn't, or follow, break the niyams that we shouldn't be breaking. And there's something inside that says no. We call it the conscience at times. But then what is it that's saying yes, and what is it that's saying no? And then Maharaj gives an amazing answer. Maharaj says there's a battle going on inside, just like there was the battle in the Mahabharat, in Kurukshetra. That same battle goes on inside between the words of Kusang and the words of Satsang. So positive words of Satsang that the Sant gives us, that we are the Atma, we are true, we should follow the rules of Satsang. And then the words of Kusang that say, okay, no, it's fine to be liberal, to be free, to do what you want. So those are the things. So just recognize that battle first is the first step in being courageous.
Yeah, I think like when you put it like that, there's many battles happening all the time. Like it's not like we're against a physical enemy, but that enemy is kind of internal, right? And that's what.
In terms of what you said, the battle of the mind, I think I read somewhere recently that all wars in history are because of legacy. People want to put their own legacy. That's why they do war, whether that's the Nazi occupation of World War II, basically, or there's any other war in history. So the battle of the mind is quite an important topic, and that's always been the case. And we just deep diving into it is important because it teaches us as our age how to stick firm to our character, our morals, our beliefs.
Swami said that we should recognize Kusang around us. It is quite easy. It's easier to recognize things like going out to a party and things like that as Kusang. But Maharaj says that there are 3 types of Kusang. One of that is Kusang within Satsang. So how can we recognize that?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Now, recognizing Satsang, Satsang no Kusang. So the Kusang within Satsang is something that's important. I think understanding what it is first is important, because even within a Satsang environment, Bhagavan Swami says in the Vachanamrut that Morivat, negative talks, is Kusang within Satsang. That's one thing. Morivat, negative talks, and that's in this bhajan as well. Okay, in this, I think, was it? Kadi dina vachana nava bhake, jaganu sukha dukha re, maika mithya kari jane. So, the allurements and enticements of the world, the sukha and dukha of the world, he sees as maik and mithya, as destructible, not true. And what's the next thing?
Vipati
varati re, kedi dina vachana nava bhake. Vipati varti means even in hardships. He never speaks discouragingly. So the bad company, which is Kusang, inside like Satsang or anywhere in the world actually, is those discouraging words. Because words are really what makes us. I've heard in a Swamini Vat, Gunatitanand Swami says, ke shabda rupi de, ke our whole swarup, who we are, is made by the words we are surrounded by what we listen to. And that penetrates us. It penetrates our minds, our hearts, our souls, and makes us who we are. So if we're surrounded by words that are discouraging, like what's here, they shouldn't affect us. And how do they not affect us? Again, it's Pratham 70, Gadara section 1, number 70. The more you raise the Satsang side of the army, strengthen the Satsang side, then the more strength it'll have to fight the Kusang side, the bad company side of the army.
The Ramayana is stood on this. Kite Mata actually, she loved Sri Ramchandra Bhagavan more than Bharatji, her own son. But it's when Mantra done her thing and put all those words in her ear about the burn and about banning Ram Bhagwan off and putting Bharat on the throne. Otherwise, Kite never wanted to do that. She was more than happy when Dashrath announced that tomorrow will be the Rajya Abhishek of Sri Ramchandra Bhagavan. Kite was delighted because she genuinely had so much love. But it's these negative words that affect you, that will destroy you from satsang path or any other path, even in your worldly education, or you play sports, or you learn music. Any morivat abaogun, it'll ruin you.
Yeah, and in terms of, I think the true test of character is when you're down, or when you are in your lowest points. Because it's at that point where you can choose to do right or choose to do wrong. And in our case, as students, we can say, maybe that's when we receive grades that are not favorable to us. So maybe, sometimes that can be the case.
Even I was reading this article about Tom Brady. When I don't follow NFL, so this is a superficial summary of what I read, but because of the Patriots were like serial winners, so nobody liked the Patriots. So many times, they had the deflated footballs gate. They had I think the coach was recording the other team's positions. So every now and then they would, the media and everybody who wanted to bring down the Patriots would accuse Tom Brady of basically cheating. And I remember him saying in a press conference, when he sat down with somebody, he said, no, you just shut out all of the negativity. You shut it out. People are always going to try and bring you down. People are always going to try to attack you. But if you let that in, then his career would have gone down the toilet. But you have to shut it out. And that's what Maharaj is saying in Pratham 17. Okay, today we want to get rid of this maya. And we don't want to fall to negative words. Satsang ma kusang, which is what you said, Jack.
It's like that reminded me of the 2018 cricket tour. So the Indian cricket team went to Australia. And at the time, there was a lot of negative press about the Australian Test cricket team because of the whole sandpaper incident. And at the time, Warner centred back into the side and Smith as well. And they were asking them, they were struggling a lot because there was a lot of negative press. Every time that Virat Kohli would go out and they'd ask him what your strategy is and things like that, the journalists is always just swing it into the way and say, what do you think about the Australian Test team? Should it even be allowed to play anymore? And always veer the conversation that way. And similarly, when the press conference was done by the Australian cricket team, they'll say something very similar, saying, does this press affect you? Should you be playing? Should these players have been reintroduced into the squad? And at the time, David Warner came out and said it's just white noise and that's how we need to treat it as.
Yeah, just ignore it.
Yeah.
I think what Purva said, dealing with loss. Yeah, in the second line, Maharaj said, we just mentioned Jaganu Sukha Dukha Re, Maika Mithya Kari Jane, Tana Dhana Jātā Re, Antarama Shoka Na Ane. Yeah, so Tana Dhana Jātā means if you have any, suffer from some loss of the body, physical loss, or dhan is financial loss. So these things, the world is full of these. In another kirtan, it said, Sansar che sukha dukha no dariyo. Yeah, tema tari shake koi kaja tariyo. So this world is full of, it's an ocean full of waves of happiness and misery. And there are only a few that can really swim this. In that way, stay afloat in that situation. So to stay afloat and to stay strong in the midst of losses, everyone's going to, as they say, take an L. The kids say, everyone takes L's in life. But it's how you deal with them. That's what this bhajan, it doesn't just give you thoughts. It shows you how to live a life. It shows you the types of things that will guide how we should act in different situations. Or how courage can help us act in these situations, how conviction can help us act. Dealing with different types of losses is something really important.
I think mindset plays a big role into it. So having developed this type of version, emphasizes the strong mindset to have. Mindset of, courage, fearlessness.
But we talk about courage, and people can be courageous for lots of reasons. Somebody can be courageous because they just literally have no brains and they don't think. They do silly things and then make up lies and stuff like that. But what sort of courage do you think Sadhguru Brahmanand Swami is talking about? Sadhguru Gunatitanand Swami is talking about, or the sort of courage that Maharaj Bhagwan Sarana is trying to underlie to make sure everybody is clear that your courage should be based on this. Courage is based on lots of things.
The thing that makes this courage different to other types of courage is because traditional courage is against an external enemy. What this is, you're trying to be courageous to something which is inside to its.
Okay, it's still a fight though. It's still a fight. So for you to have a fight against somebody outside or somebody inside or something inside, what is driving the courage is where the value in all of these kirtans is. That's where the value is.
Do you remember scientifically what courage?
So there's sort of a somewhat scientific basis on courage and sort of how it links to fear, where it's a mix of what goes on in the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and that sort of thing, and how adrenaline plays into it. So a lot of the time people have sort of temporary courage with adrenaline, and that's what you're talking about, the external courage sort of thing. But it's probably a completely different ballgame to realize how to fight what's inside and how to build up courage against that.
Yeah, I guess just linking to that, like we see the people who are, they're like adrenaline junkies. They tried jump off buildings, parachute. Like that guy, Red Bull person, jumped off the highest ever free fall in history. But their courage is more because I guess they want a title or they run on their adrenaline, or this type of courage can't really run on your adrenaline. So.
And this courage is against the norm in many cases, right? It's normal to do a lot of things that we say we shouldn't do, but it's quite normal to go do it. And to go against that is the courage that we're trying to find. Because doing that it doesn't just set you apart socially sometimes, but it can just, there's in social aspects of them, I think the biggest part, like, it can change you.
What's different about this type of courage? Look, I read a quote, Greek philosopher Aristotle. So he said, "I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies. For the hardest victory is over the self. And that to overcome one's desires is greater than fighting any external enemy," according to that. And it makes sense. That's what we see and experience in life. Like you said, this battle is hard because it goes against the norm that you guys are used to outside. Now, there's just a few weeks ago, it just reminded me of a Kishore called Pratham, a youth called Pratham. He's only 14, 15. I think he's 15 now. He's just gone into year 11. He's doing his DAV, Duke of Edinburgh. And he went on they go out and where do they go to camping?
Camping and expedition.
Yeah, expedition. So he went to a place. He had to do a 20-mile hike on over 2 days. So 20 mile one day and 20 miles the second day. I think, have any of you done it?
Yeah,
I did that as well. So then he did it. But on day one, it was Friday. It was like a month ago. And it was Ekadashi. So Ekadashi, so it's a hike and you have to, and nowadays there's a lot of these, they're very careful about people's well-being and health. It makes sense. You have to be. So the teachers, he'd come with his packed lunch, Indian packed lunch standard, but he'd come with Ferrari packed lunch, whatever it was, probably Moria and khichdi and chips and whatever, crisps. So he had that packed. He had it in the morning before they went out on the walk. But the teachers told him at night, you'll have to eat the food that we give you. Now, he didn't comment too much at the time. He had his Ferrari in the morning, and they said, you can't keep anything with you because there's a risk it can go off. So health and safety, we're not going to let you take any more food for night. So then he had to get rid of it. And then they went with their backpack, everything. And at night, when everyone sat to eat, he refused to eat. He said, it's Ekadashi, I'm not going to eat this food because it was normal food from outside and non-Ferrari food. They didn't have fruit out there as well. So he couldn't even have that. Now, one teacher came and tried to force him, said, no, look, it's in our rules. You have to eat. It's not good for you if you don't. Then 3 teachers came and they really urged him, you have to eat. Then they called his parents. And he's generally quite softly spoken, but even his parents said, Chandlo, your teachers are telling you, so maybe you should eat today. But still he stuck to his resolve. Now, we're saying going against the norm. But he stayed courageous. That's very difficult to do. When all of your friends are doing one thing, even your teachers, your seniors are encouraging you to do something, but to stick to your principles at that point really shows proper and true courage. So he did that, and he followed the Ekadashi fast that day.
I remember when I was growing up, there was a Kishore. He's now moved to America, but his name was Vinny. And when he studied at Westminster University, and when the term started, he felt a little bit embarrassed about doing Tilak Chandlo. And so he didn't do Tilak Chandlo. But then obviously, Brahmanand Swami would come to London every year at that time. And on 1998, in this hall, whenever Brahmanand Swami would come out at 10 p.m., it was as if Pratham Maharaj was on some mission. Any barak, any kishore, satsangi, anybody who came in front of him, to Tilak Chandlo. And he must have felt that prerna that, chalo, let's at least try. And now, obviously, halfway during the year for you to start Tilak Chandlo, it's difficult enough as it is at the start. Now, he's had 4 or 5 months. He's made all his friends. Now to go into university with the Tilak Chandlo, but he had that bark. No. Okay, Pratham Maharaj said, so I want to please Pratham Maharaj. So he done his Tilak Chandlo. And then he thought that, look, I'm going to have 100, 200, 300 people. They're going to come to me over the next couple of days and they're going to badger me. What's this on your forehead? So he thought, like, you have to admire the courage of the guy. Before his lecture started, lecture theatre had, maybe 300 people. He walked down to the front, got on the stage. He asked his lecturer if he could just have 2 minutes. And he said, I'm studying on this course. You've all seen me at these lectures. My name's Vinny Patel. But there'll be something on my forehead today that you're seeing for the first time. And instead of answering 200 people and giving them the same answer, I'm going to do it now in front of everybody. This is a Tilak Chandlo. This is what it means. I go to the mandir in London. My guru is Pratham Maharaj. This is his wish for me to Tilak Chandlo. If anybody has any questions, I'm not going to feel upset. If you ask me, that's fine. That's totally fine. And he got a big round of applause. Now, obviously, everybody in there some of them were Hindus, some different religions. Not many people were Satsangis, but stood in front of genuine courage. I think everybody was impressed by Vinny's courage. And that was endearing in my mind when I was studying university. You've got these people like Vinny. It's such a small act. But imagine how much courage there is behind that. I thought that was really impressive when I was growing up.
The thing is, sticking to character and having, strong morals is something that everyone looks up to. It's a distinct. I think when it comes to this, it's the courage to start more than it's the courage to carry on. Because once you start, most people end up like when I used to go to school, the Tilak Chandlo, and if I ever didn't do it one day, I'd be asked, why didn't you do it? And so it's weird because you don't expect people to do that. But it's with if you lay the boundaries up and you show people that you are willing to, state as character, that you want to say it with your morals, the people actually like and they respect you for it. And I think it's the courage to start that really hinders most people.
We had this barak in Birmingham, and his name is Sharad Johan. His father's name Dharmesh Bhai. Top kid, he's in year 8. So last year they had an end of a school year trip. It was like a camping trip in Bournemouth or Dorset or somewhere there. And Sharad didn't realize that because it's camping, then you don't have a bath for 2 or 3 days, the duration of the camping trip. And so he's panicking. I have to have a bath in the morning because I have to do what puja. If I do that, then I can eat and go on. So he didn't realize now, Bhagwani there was a river nearby, about 100 meters from where they were camping. And so for the 2 or 3 days he stayed there without harassing anyone, without crying or without complaining. He just got up early in the morning. He told his teachers. He went to the river, had a bath in the river, got changed in a new set, fresh, clean pair of clothes, and he would do his puja in his tent. And obviously all of his friends are waking up, and I was like, Sharad, what are you doing? And the teachers were so impressed, his friends were so impressed. They asked him, Sharad, what are you doing? Like bathing in the river, it's cold. And he said, no, I go to the mandir in Birmingham, we have Bal Sabha. And my guru's agna is for me to do puja every day in the morning. And for that, obviously I have to have a bath, because physically I have to be clean before I do my daily worship. And he took the hit. He went and bathed in the river every day, done his puja, and then he would only eat. And again, that takes a lot of courage to do that. One, to have a bath in a river, for God's sake, cold water in the morning. But the courage to do that in front of all your friends. But again, like you said, if you start, there's a line in this kirtan, in one of the chosas, Darta Choi, Ne Madat Kare Morani. So 100%, he said, you just have to start. If you start, to Bhagwan Betachchen to give you all of that courage to open the doors that you felt were shut. That's why I think some of the Paramhans Pados, why they have so much endearing value and value even today. Because courage is something that's so underrated. If you show a little bit of courage, take that one step, So Bhagwan and his Sant are always there to help you, always there to help you. That's why I think these kirtans have so much life, 200 years old.
Yeah, I think just speaking on my personal experience, when I first started studying medicine, I've done Tilak Chandlo at school, so it was kind of, I knew I wanted to carry on. Obviously, having Jay there was a big help. But one of the things I used to think about was when I was on placement, would it feel weird doing Tilak Chandlo? Because I've never seen, personally, like a doctor have like a religious symbol on their forehead. I thought, would the fellow doctors treat me a bit differently? Would the patients speak to me properly? Would they be racist? That sort of thing was always on my mind. But as you mentioned, like, I'm the Bhavnagar Swami. So like, when I went there, I turned out like basically my entire ward was Indian. And in fact, having the Tilak Chandlo helped me hugely because everyone would kind of be like, oh, Joa Chobrao, and it's the Tilak Chandlo person, Chandlo Karina. And that meant that they would, say stuff to me which they wouldn't tell their doctors because they'll think of me as like a grown-up person, think, oh, I've got it. So like within my personal experience, that thing of Tilak Chandlo, which in my opinion is a real symbol of courage because you're physically demarcating yourself to be different from everyone else. Being different with our niyams is one thing, but dressing differently, being a different person is a completely different ballgame. So that was something that I was quite worried about when I first started, but now retrospectively looking back, it's been a huge help.
No, I was relating back to the Tilak point and the morals point that Bhagavan said. I feel like nowadays the culture is such that a lot of people don't do these things because like of the day vibe that everyone has. And I feel like that kind of relates to morals because things like swabhabs, like dhan, Krodh, Lobh, that sort of stuff is a big reason why we create these external enemies. And so obviously that puts into perspective how important it is to fight the enemies inside, which is our swabha.
But I do also think these enemies inside aren't just enemies for us. Like just speaking on some other experiences, in our first year, I'm sure Jay can agree, and Puraj as well, that there's like a culture of going out. Like, whether that's to nightclubs or going out to bars to drink every evening, that sort of thing. But it's only a phase because before they know it, exam season comes and that's all shut down. And then in our second year, that basically entire culture is gone. We didn't even realize they did that in first year. That's like a first year thing. As they grow up, they need to mature, they need to be more professional, be more responsible, and that is something that kids do. And now we're in our third year, and I don't think anyone really goes out anymore on weekdays. So you see that it's not just something that we try and conquer; it's something that everyone tries to conquer. But sometimes I feel like there's a study done, and it's called the spotlight effect, where when we live our life, we feel like there's a spotlight on us, like we have the spotlights here right now, and it feels like everyone's looking at what we're doing. But in reality, when we actually go outside, sorry to break it to you, but no one really cares. So we feel like everyone's got their eyes on us, so if we move a bit out of the line, then everyone will clock. But in reality, that's completely not the case.
But I think what you said earlier and what Swami said, it's God helps those who help themselves. Okay, when you put in some effort, then it's like, everything just seems to work out in that way. That's something that a lot of people find, that when they take that step, then, all right, this wasn't so bad. Like you said, it's Bhagwan makes that happen. And that's a lot of the things that we've all experienced, I think. But like you said, like one person that really hits me every time. Because we always see, we see it on the drama stage and we see it like, wow, this time it's Abhaysingh Darbar's person. Now, think about it, like he was a Darbar, so Puraraj can relate. There was a Darbar, he was invited to a party, a social that he had to go to. All of the different Darbars, the village chiefs had got together. And Jam Bapu, the head of that whole region, basically the king of the region, he was hosting the party, so everyone had to come. He sat in the corner, he met everyone he needed to, but he stayed well away from the drinking. Now, there's always people there to stir. So I know you said one thing that, look, if you go out there, then sometimes people won't say things, but there are times where people do say things. And so these guys were like, Jo Bhagat, he's a Bhagat. This is a word that people use. Okay, this guy he's now like, he's got Tilak channels. Well, let's test him. So people will test. So like some of the other village chiefs, they went to Jam Sahib and said, look, he's come to your party, but he's not drinking. You should give him a drink. He won't take he'll take it from you. So they stirred the pot basically. And so Jam Sahib, then he goes, yeah, no problem. Here, take the drink. So then we know that Abhaysingh Darbar said no. He said no a few times, but when Jam Sahib, Jam Bapu, the king, he said, no, take it for sure. Then he took his sword out and we thought he's going to kick off. There's going to be a fight. But instead of fighting, he offered his sword and said, if you really want me to drink, then chop my head off right now and pour it down my neck. Now, that's a little bit of the Shurvirta coming out. That's not something we would do every day of the week.
No, let's say when Bapu wasn't chopping.
It's all about chopping heads. He was ready. Think about that. If Jam Sahib got angry at that point and a rush of blood, he would have chopped his head off. Because in those days, it was like, all these kings were very, very, like at times rash and they're ready to fight at any time. He gave him his sword ready to chop his head off, to stick to his niyam. Now, when you think about that, put yourself in those shoes. Are we ready to like die for our principles? That's a really, really, it really puts you in there. And what are those? Do you guys ever face anything that tests your like resolve at times?
I think going back to what they mentioned earlier, like having character, obviously, you have the idealized life and everyone's trying to get there, but the idea is that, okay, let's have a little pitfall. Let's go through the lows, let's have all the experiences in the world and then go back to the top or the ideal place that you want to be. But if you're already there, then you can only get better. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like a benchmark.
I think for us, sometimes doing satsang is the harder decision because it's active. Whilst just following the nature of life, there's the famous painting, forgot the painter, but it's a person lying down on a log on a river. And it describes that is how he wants to live his life. Like carefree, like wherever the river takes you, you kind of just go. And I feel like a lot of people live their life in that sort of way, where it's carefree, wherever kind of life ends up, you end up, that sort of thing. But for us, our decisions are all active. At university, it's easy to just go with the flow. If your friends say, do you want to come out? Just go with the flow. Like, yeah, we'll come. If someone says, let's not go to this lecture, just bunk it, I go with the flow, go with that. But to me, the person makes the active decision and active to say no. I think that's the hardest part. It's less for me about what other people think. I think I've kind of got over that. At the beginning, it definitely was that if I am like this, then this person will be friends with me or this person will like me, that sort of thing. But I think at university, genuinely, from my experience, no one really cares enough about you to kind of go against what you say. But it's more is this the right thing that I'm doing that plays on my head personally? Because as Buraj mentioned, we've seen certain examples of certain people who go through university and, they, with a laissez-faire approach, they kind of do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, they kind of feel all right. And you see them now, the good guy because the good Satsang. So in my head, that sometimes plays on my mind is, why don't I just go with the flow and then Bachi else figure it out later on.
One really nice Vachanamrut that I think everyone likes. Pratham said, Gurada section 1, number 74. And in that near the end, Maharaj says that we should be like a dry leaf. So wherever the wind blows, that dry leaf will go. So that's sort of linking to what you said, but a different thing. In that you're saying go with the flow. That's what the world says. But what Maharaj says in that Vachanam is let the flow be what Maharaj tells us. So let our wind be Maharaj. So if we're a dry leaf, we're ready to go in any direction that the wind blows. But if that wind is Maharaj and Swami's words, then that's the right direction. So I think that moves us on to like what real courage is. What is the basis of the courage in these bhajans and in what Maharaj has said. So in the third verse of this bhajan, we heard Harine Samarere Nitya Aho Nisha Umanga Bharya. So he remembers Bhagwan and therefore he is always full of enthusiasm, zeal, happiness. His in the Vachanamrut Gurada section 2, number 2, Maharaj says that we should always be fulfilled from inside. So that fulfillment is due to faith, due to one's Atma realization, due to faith in God. Those two things, Atma and Paramatma Nugunan. So having the faith in those things and conviction in what Maharaj is telling us, I think that leads to real courage.
I think like practically, these things, what they teach us is not, how Mahant Swami always says, your prapti is greater than your problems. We might think that we have the world's problems on our shoulders. And it's not to say that we do, because some of us do. But Mahant Swami always says, look towards your prapti. So like there's this really nice Samanivat. It's Prakran 4, section 4, number 18. Where Gunatitanand Swami Maharaj, he's remembering a prasang from Maharaj's time, where Maharaj once told one sadhu. He said, Kam, Krodh, Adik, Je, Antah, Shatru. So, Kam, Krodh, Lobh. In Pancharafu, Maharajas mentioned 28 such swabhavas, instincts. And as if 28 isn't enough, Maharaj says, Ityadik, etc. So, God only knows how many there are. But Gurasai Maharaj says, all of these internal enemies, ego, lust, avarice, anger, all these sorts of stuff, he goes, kyare jitai tem nati. Like, it's one of those mic drop statements. You're never going to defeat your enemies, inner enemies. But then what's the point? What are we doing here? Why are we sat here? Why are you guys sat here? You're never going to defeat them. So Gurasai Maharaj throws you off a cliff. And then he says that Maharaj says, Parn, now it's a very heavy but. He said, Maharaj said, Ame, Maharaj is talking about himself, Ane ha sadhu, etle the guru, the true sant. He goes, Tamara pakshma che, etle seje jitai jashe. So he's saying, never lose faith. Don't look at the problems. Don't look at the obstructions. Don't look at what's getting you down. Just remember who's fighting with you on your side. I have Harijan Swami with me. I've already won. That's what these kirtans say. That's what Gunatitanand said. Maharaj said, remain happy. Just do what the Bhagwan son told you to do. It's all good. And I always used to remember this. If I said Oli Gunnar Solskjaer right now, for example, you guys are going to say, oh, he's a decent to good manager who managed Manchester United a couple of years ago. Sadly, didn't go too well for him. But Puja Gunkin and myself remember him as an absolute legend that plays for Manchester. I remember years ago when he came to United and they were interviewing him. And he said that he was an 18-year-old kid that came from Molde all the way from Norway. And he came to Manchester, biggest club in the world, best club in the world. And he said that I always used to think playing the Premier League, you're playing against Arsenal, Chelsea, all these big teams, and Manchester City were pathetic at talent. So, and he always just feel that nervousness, the tension, the fear that he won't be able to perform. And he said that once he scored a goal in front of the Stretford end, and he had his hands out in front of the Stretford end, in front of the fans, and then he turned around and he saw that Eric Cantona, absolute god that he is, Eric Cantona was running towards him to embrace him and congratulate him. He had Paul Ince, Rory Keane, Ryan Giggs, Brucey, Pallister, Schmeichel. And he thought, do you know what? Like, what do I have to worry about? I've got these guys fighting with me on my side. He said, when I was in the dressing room after that, I would look around the dressing room whenever I felt a bit nervous or tension or stress. And I've got these players, absolute monsters, legends of the game. I've got Sir Alex Ferguson there. I've got nothing to worry about. I've already won. And I think that's what Gurasai Maharaj is saying. Look, on yourself, you're never going to defeat your swabhavas, ever. You're going to be dukhi for the rest of your life until eternity. But he said that Bhagwan and his sant are with you. And he should never, ever. It's not about winning. You know, our struggle, our fight, our battle as bhaktas of Bhagwan is not about winning. Because we're never going to win. But in these kirtans and in the Vachanamrut, in the Swami Vivat, they are telling you, do you know what? Just have patience, dhiraj, just continue the fight. You know, in Pratham 70, you said Gurra 170, where Maharaj gives the example of two devotees, two bhaktas. One, he's fighting very weak opponents and he defeats them and he goes to Akshardham. You got another devotee who's facing some serious enemy and he gets knocked down, he gets up. He gets knocked down, he gets up. He gets knocked down, he gets up. 1,000 times he fails, 1,000 times he gets knocked down, 1,000 times he stands up. He says, Mari Sate Bhagwan Che, God is with me, continue the fight. And he never wins. He dies having never beaten his swabhavas, instincts. And the Paramahansas asked Bhagwan, Bhagwan, what happens to that guy? This guy, he went to God's abode. What about this guy? He failed, but he never gave up the fight. And then Maharaj says, Bhagwan says, Bhagwan will look at that devotee and say, Shabash. Well done. Because he never lost faith. He never lost that himmat, courage, patience. He just continued to fight. And that's why these buds, Vachanamrut Swami, they're so endearing. Because you read these vats and Maharaj is saying, Amena san tamara pakshmashe, we're with you. We're with you. Don't ever think that we're not with you. Just continue fighting. Whether you lose or whether you win, irrelevant. They've taken the stress and tension of winning. away from us, just continue the fight. Continue trying to continue working hard, and you won in the end. You already won because Bhagwan is on your side.
That topic of resolve links quite nicely to some external topics as well, like outside of Satsang, which actually say the same thing. So the study once done, off the top of my head, they picked 100 different people. I think the external topic of resolve links quite nicely to something which I read recently. There was a study done. They picked 100 different people, and they saw what their outcomes in the gym were like after 6 months. So obviously you had, I think there's about 20 or 30% of people who didn't end up going even one day. You know, those people who, like it's New Year's resolutions, they go one day, go 2 days, but after a couple of weeks it's gone. But the people who may not have gone every day, but maybe only went once or twice a week, actually ended up going for the entirety of the 6 months. Because, okay, they may have had patches here and there where they didn't go too often, they have gone on holiday or something like that. Because they had that resolve and it was fixed in their mind that, do you know what, this is something I want to do, something that's beneficial for me, that they actually end up sticking to it long term, rather than those people who kind of just try hard in the first week, and then before you know it, they don't go anymore. Similarly, that links to what you were saying, that someone who fights and may lose a couple times, because they still have the courage to get up again and try their best, even though they know they've lost already, I think that takes infinitely more courage than someone who always wins their battles.
I feel like for us to visualize our end goal, which is to go to Aksharam, is obviously it's quite hard to conceptualize. But it kind of goes back to something about Tilak is that if we obviously have these fights, but if we remove all sort of logic or rationality from it, then we can just harbor that sort of pretty towards Satpurush and have full faith.
I think on nail on the head, because in this kirtan, in Dhira Durandara, Sadguru Muktanand Swami says, he describes who we're fighting against. So he says, Kamane, Krodh, Mad, Lobh, Dharmā-mukhi. So ego, lust, all of these swabhavas we're fighting against. And then at the end of the kirtan, he says, Gurumukhi jogiya jukti jane. Like you said, no logic, no rationality. Gunatitanand Swami said, Bhagwan in Pratham 74 said, you just do exactly what the Guru tells you to do. So here it says, who wins? Who wins a fight? He says, Gurumukhi. Somebody who does exactly what the Guru tells you to do. Why? Because the Guru knows exactly how to defeat the swabhavas. He knows. We don't. So if you do what the Guru says, the Guru has given us niyams, for example, on Kishore Din last year. Mahant Swami held up the cards, daily puja, weekly sabha, no social media, no laziness, all these things. He knows how to defeat the swabhavas. We're not going to be able to do it ourselves. So how do you do it? You do exactly what the Guru tells you to do. He says, Gurumukhi jogiya chukti jane, because the Guru knows exactly. Like one thing that might work for Gunatitanand Swami might not work for me. Something that will work for me might not work for Puri. And so the Guru knows, this person, how is he going to defeat these swabhavas? Okay, he'll go from A to B to C. Whereas Ved, the Guru might say, some niyams are common, but the Guru might say, Ved to defeat his swabhavas, he needs to go B, D, and then he'll get to A and he'll win the battle. That's why what you said is really, really important. Just do what the Guru says.
I think that vichas is very enlightening in its own sense, because it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders, because at the end of the day, you're not doing anything, you're not making any decisions, because you're just following in the footsteps of someone who has already won. Mm-hmm. And it's something which we externally or outside we do so much. We find our role model, quote unquote. But before you know it, your role model's done something wrong, and you're like, is this guy really my role model? Like in football terms, everyone idolizes Ronaldo. But then a lot of people, when he moved to the Saudi league, was thinking, it's really the right decision in his life. Is he really my idol anymore? It's really the greatest of all time. Is that really who he is? But we're so lucky that we've got a Guru who's perfect. So we're not going to be in a position where 10 years down the line, we think, was that the right decision? Because whatever the Guru says is correct. So I think it's very enlightening vichar for us. Like, it takes a lot of weight off our shoulders. It reminds me of in 2017 in Kishore, we had the whole kite analogy. That whichever way Mahant Swami wants to take us, all we have to do is just go. Like, there's no other thought process in between. There's no, is this the right thing? Is this really how I want to live my life? It's just do it, and then you see the fruits of it instantly. So that's very enlightening.
And I think what you said, or what we discussed about courage, all of these buds are about courage, about patience, about himmat. But what drives that courage? Like sometimes we look in the world and we fall into the same trap. But what sort of things drive our courage? Or what do we rely on to do things? So we rely on things like money. We might be wealthy, our own intelligence. Okay, I can do that. I know how to do that. Our health, our looks, other objects. These are things that all drive our courage, drive our confidence. But what these kirtans, I think, teach us is in this world, spiritual path and even outside, that we have all of these things that we run and find. God has given us these things. But one thing that we should not forget is Bhagwan Numbar. Can never ever forget that. Do you know what? At the end of everything, all of these things, money, wealth, our intelligence, physical objects, they're great, but how permanent are they? Because let's say your health today is good, tomorrow it might not. But there's nothing's for sure. But Bhagwan Numbar will never go. And I think one really, really endearing, for the last 5,000 years, people have been talking about it, studying it, discussing it like this, is in the Mahabharat. You talk about knowing your enemies. So like, for example, I'll ask you guys, before a Premier League match starts, right, when the players come out, and then before it starts, what do players do?
If I was, a striker, then you have animosity towards your defenders.
No. Before the game starts. No, after you've come out from the tunnel, you're on the pitch.
Yeah.
They warm up.
After they're warmed up.
They stand in their team.
Yeah, they take a photo, and then what do?
To deal with their different, like some people.
They get to their position.
No, before they get...
No,
They have some superstitious little acts.
Before that.
They have the team huddle.
Yeah, and then after the team huddle, before they start, they shake each other's hands. Why is that? Because the players say, okay, I'm going to be battling against you for 90 minutes. I'm going to be fighting against you. I'm going to be fighting against you. It's to know your enemy. It's a psychological thing. And right before this enormous war was about to begin, in the Mahabharat, Arjun asked Bhagwan, okay, Bhagwan, take my rath to the middle. Take the chariot to the middle. I want to see who I'm fighting against. And Bhagwan was obviously very smart. He knows everything that's going to happen. So Bhagwan, maybe with a little bit of a chuckle, he took the chariot to the middle, and then Arjun saw his grandfather Bhishma Pita. He saw his gurus, Dronacharya, Kripacharya. He saw his family. And he thought, you know what? I can't do this. Up until that point, Arjun was the warmonger. He was on Bhagwan's back. Okay, let's do war. I'll show these guys. Arjun had that abhiman about his own strength, his intelligence, his wealth, his army, all of his weapons. He had everything. But in 74, what's the title of Vachanamrut 174?
Jan apat kare.
Correct.
She's your understanding is
tested in extreme moments. Now, all this time, Arjun's life, he was like, yep, Gandhi, strength, Pandavs, weapons. I'll deal with these guys in my sleep. But at that extreme moment, when he stood in front of his enemies, he lost everything. He says, physically, I'm sweating, I'm shaking. He said, emotionally, I'm totally spent. My mind is going around in circles. And if you take, let's say you take a sweet off a little kid, what would he do? He'd throw a strop and he'd sit down and cry. Arjun puts everything down to one side. And he sits down and he tells Bhagwan, you do what you want, I'm not fighting. And then at that time, that's the starting of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It's a granth that's considered the essence of every single Hindu scripture. 700 shlokas. And he's given him Paramatmanu Gnan, Atma Gnan, Sankhya Gnan. Bhagwan's giving him all of this. Arjun, stand up. Stand up and do your duty. Stand up and fight. And Arjun's not having any of it. Because I can't do it. Okay, I'll fall into pap. He tells Bhagwan, you're going to fall into pap. Now you can understand how confused he is. Bhagwan is above kar, karma, ne maya. And he says, Bhagwan, you will fall into pap. And then he gives him all this gnan. Still, Arjun doesn't stand up. At the end, Bhagwan says, Arjun, he says, Sarva-dharmān parityajya mam ekam sharanam praja. Yeah, Adhyaya 18 and the shlok number 66. He goes, look, Arjun. And Yogi Baba defined Sarva-dharmān really nicely. He said, Manna manela dharma. Whatever you have defined dharma as in your mind, which was Arjun's issue, because he thought that this war was unjust, unlawful. But he said, take everything out of your mind. Okay, you will fall into sin. You won't go to God's abode when you die. Put everything outside of your mind. Mam ekam sharanam raja. Tu pragat bhagwan no ashro kar. Come and seek my refuge, and only my refuge, only God's refuge. And he says, don't worry about a single thing. I am with you. You will win. No pap. You'll go to Bhagwan's abode. Don't worry about a single thing. And then we know Arjun stood up, and then he was able to fight. So it's good to have the thinking, I have this much wealth. I have all of this to rely on, my intelligence, my own capabilities, everything. But endearing message is never forget that Bhagwan Nubar is infinite. That is something you will always be able to rely on, regardless of however many difficulties you face in your life. Brahmanand Swami, same thing. He didn't have it easy. Bhagwan Swami tested him. He sent him to build a mandir in Junagadh, where the ruler at the time, Sadhguru Brahmanand Swami, faced opposition from him. But he did certain groups of the community a lot of attention and stress. But Brahmanand Swami said, I've got God on my side. Bhagwan Swami sent him with 12 or 13 rupees in his hands, gave him that much money and told him, go build a mandir in Varta. Now, what are you going to do with 12 rupees? Do anything. But Brahmanand Swami knew that this is Bhagwan ni Agna, is Bhagwan's wish. I just have to try. And he built a Sarvapari mandir like Vartal mandir. Even Bhagwan Swami was shocked. Brahmanand Swami, how did you do this? But Brahmanand Swami had that Bhagwan Nubar. And you look at anyone in our Shastras, you look at the likes of Lakshmanji, Hanumanji, Angad in the Ramayana, they had Bhagwan Nubar. You look at Dada Kachar, Bhagwan Nubar. Even Hari Bhaktas from the time of Pramukh Sai Maharaj, even now Man Sai Maharaj, you look at Bhagwanji Bhai Mandavya. Bhagwan, on his deathbed, he's saying he had stage 4 cancer, terminal cancer. And he said, I have no dukh whatsoever in my life. Mane sampurna santosha ne anand that I met Pramukh Sai Maharaj and I've been able to serve him. In London, we had Hari Bhakta Bhai Bhupendra Kaka. On his deathbed, kidney failed, both of them. And he said that the joy and the bliss that you enjoy in Akshardham, I'm enjoying that right now. This is hours before he passed away. No sort of dukh, nothing in their life because they had Bhagwan Nubar. That will get you through any difficulty in life. And I think that's why it's so relevant even for today, for kids today. You guys studying, professionals in every aspect of your life. If you remember that, Mani Pase Bhagavan Cha, I have God with me, there's nothing that you cannot accomplish in life.
Like Swami just said, if our fearlessness is based on Bhagwan Nubar, the strength of God, the strength of faith. So faith can make us fearless. If we have faith, that can lead to us being fearless in life. I think that's really the summary of this whole pod. The courage, the fearlessness that comes from faith. So at the end, Brahmanand Swami says, Brahmananda kahe re, eva harijanani balihari, mastaka jātā re, nava mele teka vichari. That he doesn't give up his resolve, even at the cost of his own life. And the great thing is, like in all the Shastras, in the Vachanamrut, in the Gita we heard, and through prasangs from the Mahabharat and everything, and from Maharaj's time, we see there are so many Hari Bhaktas like that. But even today, you see people, due to faith, that leads to them being fearless. So there's Niril Bhai Patel, a Hari Bhakta in Chicago. Now, he was born with really serious kidney issues. And in his life, in his relatively short life, he had 4 kidney transplants and 4 kidney failures. Just imagine. And nearly 74 operations throughout his life. First one at 15 months old. Had all sorts of issues. This is just to name some. But and he went to Dham. He passed away at the age of 35. But 12 hours before passing away, he must have been in a lot of pain. He'd been through so many things. They couldn't do any more operations because of the scar tissue on his chest and everything. But he said, I'm happy. I'm content. I'm done. There's nothing more to attain, nothing more to achieve. And he was really happy in life. He had nothing more. And he felt very, very fulfilled because of Bhagwan. He said, I've attained Maharaj, I've attained Bhagwan. I've got a guru like Pramukh Sai Maharaj. So therefore, I'm done with life. I've achieved everything I need to achieve. So you can see that there are devotees like this that have such conviction and faith that even death doesn't scare them. And that's something really amazing. That's living these bhajans. These bhajans come to life in incidents like this.
And I think like even for like us, even for students nowadays, for example, like when like we're constantly in a conflict of two things. I was listening to Puja Yoganand Swami's Katha, and he broke it down really nice about faith and about ashra. Why ashra is so important is he said half the time in our life, like for example, when you think about the future, what sort of emotion does it evoke? Fear. So like, for example, like lots of kishores nowadays, they'll be concerned about, will I get my grades? Will I get into a university that I want to go to? Will I get the job that I want to get? Will I find a life? But X, Y, Z, something that they cannot physically control. But when you think about the future, you experience fear, stress. And the other half of the time, we concern ourselves when we think about the past, for example. What do you think? What sort of emotion does it evoke? So sometimes regret, like it starts when we wake up. And obviously, we don't wake up at the alarm or the 15 snooze alarms we've got. And then we have to rush our puja, maybe skip our breakfast. The first minute of the day, we're in regret. So when we think about the past, you think about all of the things that you've done that you shouldn't have. You think about all the things that you shouldn't have done that you've done. And when you think about the future, it's all stress and tension what will happen. This example in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, when Bhagavan tells Arjuna, stop worrying about the future, stop worrying about the past, just do what I say. That's all you have to do. And then a couple of shlokas after, Arjuna says the three words, very, very famous, Karishye Vachanamrut. Okay, everything to one side. Bhagavan, whatever you say, I will do. If you tell me to fight, I'll fight. If you tell me to sit down, I will sit down. And then obviously Arjuna and the Pandavas were able to fight in the battle and they won 18 days later. But the point being, the great thing about ashra, the great thing about having faith in God, because it wipes out the stress and tension of the future, wipes out the regret of the past, and it tells you, do you know what, just focus on what you need to do right now. If you focus on what you need to do right now, you're never going to worry about the past, and the future is just all going to fall into place. And that's a great thing about ashra. We say Bhagavan ashra, we think it's such a high spiritual ideal, but it's actually very, very practical. Forget about the past, forget about what's happened. You don't have any control. Don't worry about the future, because that's going to be dictated by what you do right now. And like Brahmanand Swami says in this kirtan, Gurumukhi, what Arjuna does, just do exactly what Bhagavan and his son have told you to do, or what they're telling you to do, you'll be fine. Everything will be fine. That's why I think these kirtans are so endearing.
And Mahant Swami Maharaj and our gurus, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, Mahant Swami Maharaj, Yogiji Maharaj, all of our gurus, they've actually lived this. So to follow what they're saying, you're following someone who's, we say they are Bhagwan Swarup, they are Bhagwan Swarup, but they've even lived this practically. So no regrets. Shastri Maharaj said, I've never regretted any decision in my life. Pramukh Swami Maharaj said the same thing, I've never had a regret in my life. Now, like Swami said, we regret everything from waking up late in the morning to skipping exercise to eating too much. Now, our gurus, they eat with so much sayam that you can't point a finger there at all. Their whole lives are perfect. And now to have a guru like that, it just gives you even more conviction that no, Bhagwan is present through these gurus. And therefore, it's something worth having faith in. And a really nice incident, Mahant Swami Maharaj during Corona, worst possible time, really difficult times for people. So in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, Mahant Swami Maharaj woke up, and it was July. He walked into the bathroom, and the Santos used to write nice quotes from outside. So there was a nice quote, no matter what yesterday was like, birds always start the new day with a song. So it's a nice quote, thinking, don't have any regrets about yesterday, move forward today. But Swami, he saw that, and he thought slightly differently. And he wrote in Gujarati after that, Kite Mele Re, પોતાને જે મહારાજ સ્વામી સત્પુરુષની જે પ્રાપ્તિ થઈ છે તેનાથી પોતાના શુભ દિવસની શરૂઆત કરવી. So he taught us how to develop that faith so that we can be fearless and forget about regrets, forget about anything else. He said all devotees, we should think we have attained Bhagavan, we have Bhagavan with us, have that faith and think about that attainment. Begin your day with the thought of this attainment, the thought that Bhagavan is with me. Now it becomes something practical that we should actually be practicing this. Bhagwan's with me. We should converse, like Swami said, do prasthana, pray when we need to, pray every morning, pray before we sleep, pray at times of difficulties. And when we do that, that faith directly leads to fearlessness. Our Guru's lives have taught us that.
I think even Mansaraj, when he was here last year, he said at the end of Kishodan that, pray to me, I want to hear from you. When he gave everyone that murti, he said, this is my promise, I will listen to what you said.
That video is absolutely remarkable. It's absolutely amazing. Every single time you watch it, and the hairs are on end.
Yeah, but like he's saying that if you pray to him, then everything will be all right. Like he listens to our prayers. It's not just we're praying to a murti or a statue. It's there's someone there that's actually listening. And that's remarkable that we've got a guru like that. People don't like taking time out for other people. It's just like a thing in the world. When you try to book a meeting in with someone from university, it's, I can do this day, I can't do this day. But Mansaraj, the busiest person on this earth, it's saying that he has times to listen to our practice.
And with faith, you feel that he is listening. Faith, it's said that people have blind faith, but this faith helps you see. You feel, you experience the experiential faith. You've experienced that. What Swami is telling you, he's actually listening when you pray to him. Like he said it himself in Canada, Kishoradin in 2023. They asked him, Swami, does Bhagwan listen when we pray to them? So Swami said, look, Bhagwan and us, meaning the Guru, Akshar Bro, he is in every corner and every atom. And through every corner and every atom, he listens when we pray to him. So always have faith that he is listening. Now, those who have practiced it, I think they experience it a little. Okay, God is there, Bhagwan is there, and he's not far away, he's one prayer away. And he's there in every moment of our lives, be they difficult, be they the good moments. Sometimes we forget Bhagwan in the good moments, and he's always there. But in the difficult moments, he's the one who carries us through. There's that famous story of footprints in the sand. So when the person, he went through his life, then when he died, he got to Bhagwan's abode. And God showed him his whole life on a beach. And it showed 2 sets of footprints. Look, you're walking throughout your life and I was with you at every step of the way. And now the devotee tells to God, he says, look, at my most difficult times though, I was alone. There's only 1 set of footprints. That's when Bhagwan says to him, no, those footprints are mine. So Bhagwan says, I was carrying you through those difficult times. So faith is understanding that God is with us through all moments. Whether we experience him or not, having faith is knowing that he is there.
But Swami, sometimes we get told that believing in something as strongly as this is like a leap of faith because, we're trying to dive into something that we haven't done before. So how can we kind of overcome that sort of bicha? Can speak about we believe in something.
I think everyone believes in something. Everyone has faith in lots of things. You have to have faith. You can't live life without faith. When we go to the barbers for a haircut or a shave, or when you guys go, then you trust the barber even if it's a new place. You might be in a new city, new town. You might be on holiday, but you go to the barber, say, and they're cutting your hair. He's got a sharp knife or sharp scissors, literally at times at your throat if he's shaving you. You've never met the guy, but you trust that, no, this guy's going to cut my hair and not cut my throat. Now, that takes a bit of faith to have that. In the same way, like a doctor, you go to the doctor's practice. Now, really, if it could be the first time you've met that doctor, he might be new, but you're trusting your health and trusting the dawa that he's given you, the medicine he's giving you is going to cure you and not kill you. There are incidents like that as well, but still we have faith, this doctor will save me. So in that way, we have faith in everything that we do. People, man went on the moon. Were we on the moon? No. Did we see that man went on? Were we even alive at that time? No, none of us were. So in that way, we have faith because of what the world has told us, what media has told us, the things we see on TV or on our phones nowadays. So we trust all of those things. So why could we not trust the most pure thing, the most pure being there is in our Guru that we experience? So trusting what he's telling us because of the certificate that he has, the certificate of the scriptures. The doctor has his certificate on the wall. The barber has his shop, so you trust that he's been doing it for years. And all of those things. So you trust those things. You trust your teacher because of the certificates that they have. They've been to college, they've been to university. There's rate my teacher, rate my professor, rate my teacher. That's out there as well. And you look at those things. So you trust other people's experiences with that person. In the same way, we've seen Yogi Ji Maharaj used to say, I think it was Yogi Ji Maharaj, that, Shastri Maharaj, how do you test your guru? Ke tamara guru nu vartan, the actions, how he has lived his life, the purity of his life. But his guru's vartan and those of his devotees. Now we see that the guru of our gurus is amazing. Mahant Swami Maharaj's guru, Pramukh Swami Maharaj and Yogi Ji Maharaj were extremely pure. But the life and the way that our guru lives his life is extremely pure. When you examine it, when you see it at arm's length, when you're close and far, you see that it's very, very pure. And the satsang itself, so many inspiring stories. We heard some today. That shows you that this guru, the guru that we have in Mahant Swami Maharaj, is worth putting faith in. And when he tells us that Bhagwan is with us, then you believe it.